What's up guys, my name's Tom and welcome back to the FPL Centre. Game week 8 is in the books and the second international break is here, so I figured I'd do something a little bit different today. I thought it might be interesting to take a look at the number 1 ranked team in the world and do a bit of analysis on their season so far. The decisions they've made in each game week, the key things they got right or wrong, and if there's any insight that we can potentially take away and apply to our seasons going forward. Now this video is going to be a bit more casual, none of the fancy graphics and that kind of thing, but like I said, I think it could be interesting to take a look at while we have this little break in the FPL schedule. If you like the content I am doing here on the FPL and Fantasy Champions League game, make sure to give the video a thumbs up and get yourself subscribed. Hit that notification bell as well so you know when the latest video drops. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so here is the team currently ranked at number 1 in the world. On screen right now is their game week 1 lineup, so don't pay much attention to that just yet. It's FC Theodore, playing on the Ballon d'Or words there obviously, managed by Theodore Steen Louisa from Norway, and they've managed to accumulate a massive 649 points through the first 8 weeks of the season, which is an unbelievable average of just over 81 points per week. Now I've already checked, but just to show you guys here on the bottom right of the screen there, you should be able to see their game week history and their season history and everything, as far as the chips and stuff. So the wild card has been played, but only their wild card. So as far as the rest of the chips are concerned, they've still got their triple captain, they've still got their bench boost, they've still got the free hit, all still in play there. As the season history goes, it's not the greatest, to be honest. Looks like this is their 8th season playing FPL, and their highest previous rank is just outside the top 300k. But you know, so far this season they've managed to average over 81 points per game. Like I say, they must be doing something right, and I'm kind of a bit wary to take, you know, previous season history into too much of an account, because you never know when someone is going to start really trying to play the game properly. You never know in previous seasons if things have happened. You know, maybe this person is consistently great at being, you know, very, very high and consistent over the first few weeks of the season or up until Christmas or something. And then maybe they fall away or they lose interest or something happens around that time in their work life, which means they have less time to dedicate to the game. So just because they don't necessarily have the highest overall ranks in the previous games doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad at the game or that they aren't someone that we can look at and learn from. It might be that other factors are at play there. So previous season history is not something that I get too hung up about. Like I say, I'm more concerned about looking at the here and now. And so far this season, they've done very, very well. One thing I notice while we're on this page here in that right-hand side there, you can see no hits taken at all so far. Just the 7 transfers made over 8 weeks, obviously with the wild card played there in game week 5. So they're not knee-jerking players in and out for the sake of it, it seems. Based off of just this information, we could probably say that they're being patient with the players in the team and just making little adjustments here and there, 1 transfer per week to kind of tweak the lineup. Obviously on the flip side of that, you could argue that when your lowest game week score of the season is 61, which it looks like that happened in game week 3. Obviously you're not going to want or need to make as many changes as some other players or managers. So that undoubtedly plays a role as well, in the sense that if you have more things to fix, more injuries happen, maybe you're wrong about more players, you have bigger issues in your squad, you're going to have to spend more transfers to fix those things and potentially take a hit here and there as well. So it might just be that this person, you know, had a very good team from the start, didn't actually need to fix that many things regarding their squad. But we'll take a deeper look into that soon. I just wanted to go through that with you there. So let's have a better, more in-depth look now at the lineup here for game week 1. Okay, so this is the game week 1 team selection on the left hand side there. As you can see, plenty of points spread right across the board. First things first, one big decision they've made right from the start stands out to me: no Salah. Obviously going with Mane instead was the right decision in the early weeks from a points scored perspective. and being able to spread that money across the team also allowed them to load up on premium assets here with 3 premium defenders in Alonso, Robertson and Smalling, with Wan-Bissaka and Bennett alongside, who obviously turned out to be the best possible choices there as far as enablers go. In midfield and attack, then we have another 4 premium options in Sanchez, Mane, Firmino and Aguero. So from a budget perspective, it looks like a very balanced side. The money is spread nicely across the team, and they really nailed some of the key picks to start the season there with Alonso, Robertson, Wan-Bissaka, Mane, Richarlison, Mitrovic and Aguero. All these guys returning fantastic points over the first 4 weeks. A few players that stick out as perhaps not the best options. Obviously Smalling didn't play in the first couple of weeks. Sessegnon and Pickford in goal. And obviously Sanchez hasn't exactly been on fire this season either. So it'll be interesting to see how long they stick with these players and who comes in and who goes out and stuff when they start making their transfers in the next couple of weeks. But let's move on now and we'll take a look at the Game Week 2 team. So here we go, 1 transfer made, and it was Benjamin Mendy brought in for Chris Smalling, who didn't play in Game Week 1. Like I say, he also didn't play in Game Week 2. So I think that's definitely a move that makes sense when you consider Ben Mendy's Game Week 1 performance. It's a straight transfer, 6 mil for 6 mil. Potentially he might have missed out on the 0.1 rise for Mendy. I'm not sure. You don't get to see exactly kind of how early in the week or how late in the week transfers were made historically. I forgot to mention as well, it was 86 points in Game Week 1 that team scored, and in this week, Game Week 2, it was actually 104 points. Fantastic score in Game Week 2 there. Plenty of points around the team once more, with only Bennett and Firmino blanking among the outfield players. Aguero captained there for his hat-trick, undoubtedly a key decision that many high-ranked teams will have got right. It would be interesting to know if this manager was aware of the Jamie Jackson article in The Guardian, and if they stuck to this decision regardless of that article coming out, or if the decision was made without the influence of that news. Perhaps, I noticed that they're not in any of the kind of well-known leagues across Reddit and Twitter or the various forums like Fantasy Football Scout. So it may well be possible the decision was not affected by the kind of FPL community at large. Maybe if the team manager, Theodore, sees this video, they can let us know in the comments about that. But yeah, remember this was the week as well that Sanchez didn't play, but that news broke after the deadline, so there's not much they could do about that. He got auto-subbed out onto the bench there. But they did get their bench positions right, with Bennett in the first bench spot to come in. He had the easiest fixture of the 3 bench options and at least got him a point there in order to avoid Wan-Bissaka coming on for a -2. So yeah, we'll head into Game Week 3. And heading into Game Week 3, remember they've now got a suspended Wan-Bissaka and a potentially injured Sanchez with just 1 free transfer. So let's see what they did there. So as I mentioned previously, Game Week 3 was the lowest scoring week of the season for this team so far, with 61 points, still well above the average on that week though. Another very simple sideways move that worked out with Hazard coming in to replace the potentially injured Sanchez there in midfield. So remember that original team structure we saw in the Game Week 1 lineup with a nice spread of money funding premium options across the team. Not only has that worked out well in terms of scoring points, but also in allowing these easy 1 transfer moves to other premium options when things haven't quite worked out. We saw Smalling to Mendy in Game Week 2, and now Sanchez to Hazard. They got their first captaincy blank here too though, with Aguero failing to return anything against Wolves. Those who had Salah would have got 16 points for captaining him, but he didn't explode for a huge score, so the damage was pretty minimal there, and the rest of the team again picked up plenty of points to make up for the fact that Aguero didn't deliver. Obviously, now there's a Richarlison ban to deal with, and the top 2 replacement options at the time were Walcott or Pedro. Ryan Sessegnon also only played 1 minute in Game Week 3, losing his starting spot in the Fulham lineup. So again, there's a couple of things here to deal with, only the 1 free transfer to use. Let's check out what he's going to do in Game Week 4. So here we go, game week 4 now, and it looks like Theodore went with Walcott here then, and obviously anyone else who followed suit will remember the disappointment when Theo was subbed off on 56 minutes after picking up a knock, compounded by the fact that Pedro actually came off the bench to score in Chelsea's game that week. So the first time a move hasn't worked out for them here, but still, look at that, 73 points spread right across the team there once more, and the optimal captain pick again in Hazard, while most were talking about and targeting Aguero's history as a potential captain against Newcastle. The only real letdown aside from Walcott was the 0 points from Wan-Bissaka. Next up is game week 5, and now that's when they've decided to activate their wild card, so it'll be interesting, I think, to see what moves they made there, considering how well the team has been doing. Currently ranked after this week at 301 in the world. So at the end of game week 4, 301 in the world. Looking at this team coming out of game week 4, you might say Pickford has been a bit disappointing with no clean sheets or big save points so far. Sessegnon at this point looks to have lost his place in Fulham's starting lineup, and Walcott, who came in to replace Richarlison, obviously he picked up a knock, but that's kind of 3 issues. The rest of the team doesn't look too bad. The bench looks fine. A lot of the key players are all performing well. They're all returning points. So it'll be interesting to see what moves he makes now on the wild card, kind of doing it from a positive, aggressive position, I suppose. Not wildcarding to make loads of fixes to injuries and suspensions and things, but doing it from a position of strength. I think a lot of people at this point, probably myself included, after such a great start, they might be tempted to take a -4 to like a points hit to fix a couple of things and save the wild card maybe for a bit later. But perhaps Theodore identified a good opportunity here to activate the wildcard. So let's take a look, see if we can get a bit of insight into what he was looking at there. Well, there you go, 91 points from the wildcard team in game week 5. That's pretty good, and it sent him from 301 in the world all the way up to 23rd. As far as the team is concerned, a few surprises there, but we'll go through position by position. So in goal, Kepa and Patricio come in for Pickford and Speroni. You might be surprised that they felt the need to have both a 5.5 and a 4.5 option in goal, but undoubtedly both upgrades on what they had before, and perhaps they've quite cleverly identified a strategy here. As in game weeks 9, 13 and 16, Chelsea play United, Spurs and Man City, while in those game weeks Wolves play Watford, Huddersfield and Newcastle. So it's not a bad rotation option to have for those fixtures. Obviously it's not kind of a strategy that you see employed very much across the FPL community, with both a premium 5.5 keeper and then a 4.5 as a backup. Most people would either go for a premium with a 4.0 to save a bit of money, or a 4.5 rotation, or a 4.5 set and forget. But this strategy here, obviously it's going to be a differential. Not many people are going to be using this strategy. It's going to secure him good fixtures for a very long time, all the way up until mid to late December actually. And it's going to kind of give him the best possible chance of keeping a continuous flow of 6 points coming in from the goalkeeper position, because every time, like I say, Kepa gets a tougher fixture where Chelsea might be more likely to concede, you have Patricio to come in a much easier fixture to hopefully pick up a clean sheet there. In defence, it's just the one change as Trippier comes in for Robertson. In midfield, Hazard is the only player that keeps his place, with David Silva, Lucas Moura, Maddison and Danny Ward coming in. And up front, Lacazette and Wilson, they come in to replace Firmino and Mitrovic. The biggest thing standing out here is that we have no Liverpool players at all. Remember, he had Robertson, Mane and Firmino from game week 1, and Mane in particular had done very well for him, and at this point had reached, I think, over 40% ownership as well. Yet the decision was made here to downgrade Mane to David Silva and swap out Firmino to Lacazette, presumably convinced by his performance in Arsenal's 3-2 win against Cardiff the week before. So yeah, maybe they saw this as a big fixture swing for Liverpool. In game week 5, they faced Spurs, and then they had games against Chelsea and Man City coming up over the next 4 as well. while Spurs and Arsenal had some much more favourable fixtures over that spell. Again, they absolutely nailed the captain choice here, with Hazard bringing a huge haul and plenty of others chipping in as well. This is the week Mendy missed out with the start of that foot injury though, so there's still one little issue there arising off the back of the wildcard, so let's see if anything is done about that in game week 6. So it was 67 points in game week 6, that's the second lowest score of the season for this team, but again a very solid performance and well above the game week average. Otamendi is who was opted to come in for Ben Mendy in the only move here, and another solid captaincy choice with Aguero against Cardiff grabbing a goal there. Only 3 of the 11 blanking, and it's been the case all season for this team that the points continue to come in from all over the pitch. But it's the first time in a while that they've got no suspensions, they've got no knocks, and they've got no injuries. Nothing serious to deal with there in terms of that kind of stuff, but David Silva did get rested against Cardiff and was auto-subbed out, so let's move on to game week 7 and see if anything was done to tweak the lineup there. Okay, so in game week 7 it was 72 points and an overall rank, by the way, at this point of number 11 in the world. I thought we might see David Silva make way following his rotation out of the lineup in game week 6, but it was actually Lucas Moura who leaves in order to bring Richarlison back into the team following his suspension. As you can see there, the captaincy was also put on Richarlison for the game against Fulham. A bit of a differential captaincy choice. He did blank, so it didn't work out, but I don't mind that, as there was talk of the Brazilian playing as a striker for Everton in that game, and Fulham are statistically by far the worst defensive team in the league, so targeting that game with a differential captain is risky, it is aggressive, but you can identify that there is a thought process behind it, as he's trying to capitalise on the best fixture in the game week. We can also see here that Kepa and Patricio rotation in goal already paying off, as Chelsea played Liverpool this week, while Wolves had Southampton at home, and a nice 7-point gain on that rotation already paying off there. As usual, we've got a nice amount of points dripping in across the team, with only Richarlison, Alonso and David Silva blanking among the outfield players. So let's take a look at the game week 8 team now. So there it is, one transfer made here as well. It didn't work out. They decided to bring in Mesut Ozil. I would imagine, again, that's to target the Fulham game for Arsenal. A bit of a trend developing there potentially, as we've seen multiple decisions made now to target Fulham. But unfortunately for Theodore, Ozil did not play in that one. Despite that, a 95-point score for them, which propelled the team up from number 11 in the world to that coveted number 1 spot. No Kane is a key thing here. No carving up the team to target a single game against Cardiff. Nothing like that. Hazard captain, obviously a great call instead, and having that Lacazette-Wilson combination up front, who, remember, they got in on the wild card in game week 5, that combination seriously paying off here with a further 26 points between the two of them. It will be interesting now to keep an eye on this team and what they do over the next few weeks, because there's obviously no Liverpool here, and the fixtures, Liverpool fixtures swing back nicely for quite a while. They also have Otamendi and Ozil in there, who are not consistently playing in the Premier League, and they have just the one free transfer with no wild card to move forward with. Nevertheless, an amazing run through the first 8 weeks of the season to get where they are, and I for one will be keeping an eye on this team over the next, say, 3 to 4 weeks in particular, to see what kind of moves they make, see if I can get any kind of insight into what their thought process might be, and continue to try and pick out little nuggets of information or strategy that I can identify and apply potentially in future if I think it's a good idea. Okay, so I'll just leave it on this screen for now, the Game Week 8 team. Again, apologies for the fact that there's not much to look at in this video in terms of graphics. I just wanted to record this and kind of get it out nice and quick. But yeah, what are the 5 main things that we can identify and take away from all of this? Well, firstly, I guess getting that initial team build right as you head into Game Week 1 at the start of the season is so important. Getting off to a good start from a points perspective, which of course is dependent on a certain amount of luck, because, you know, if for example, if Salah had begun the season in the same way that Mane did, we'd likely have a different team at number 1 right now. Getting those calls right is especially tough during the preseason because we have like a limited amount of information to go on. And included within that, though, is something that we see consistently mentioned across the FPL community, and that's having players from different price points across your team. In this team, we saw the money spread quite nicely across all the positions. Remember, in the Game Week 1 lineup, there were many premium options. There were, I think, 3 premium defenders and a further 4 premium options across midfield and striker. So whenever there was a transfer to be made, it was a very easy one transfer fix, and at no point were the team forced into making multiple moves to solve a problem. The second thing I think we can take away is that wildcarding at a time where you are able to identify a key fixture swing, that can have a huge positive effect, as it did for this team when they dumped all the Liverpool assets at the exact right time in order to load up on informed players coming into much easier fixture runs. Guys like Trippier and Lacazette stand out in that regard. And so yeah, timing your wildcard like that, identifying a big fixture swing, getting rid of the assets that have been doing well for you potentially, but moving them on at the right time, bringing in players who will start to do well for you while the others drop off in form. Getting that timing right is absolutely essential to continue that upward trajectory in the overall rank. Number 3, the third thing I think we can take away is obviously nailing your captain picks is key, especially in weeks where you have those big scorers. Now this may also involve a certain amount of luck, but it's a huge part of getting to the highest possible ranks. This team would be 40 points worse off alone if they hadn't captained Aguero in Game Week 2 and Hazard in Game Week 5. Now that 40 points would see them drop from 1st overall down to 84th. Now 84th is still obviously very good, but it goes to show how perfectly you have to play your captaincy when it comes to reaching the top spot. This obviously applies to using your chips at the right time too. Timing is everything when it comes to getting the most points out of each one. The fourth thing I think we can take away is whether or not it's worth to take hits is more about the context of your team. You may look at this kind of team ranked number 1 overall and see that they haven't taken any hits yet, and then you might conclude that that must be a good way to play the game. But then, however, you don't take into account that after going through the team game week by game week, we saw that at no point did they really need to fix multiple issues other than the week they played the wildcard. Now, generally speaking, it's probably best not to take hits for the sake of it, but if you have multiple injuries or suspensions and you can improve your team overall in the process, taking a hit can actually be a very positive thing for your FPL prospects. And the fifth thing, the final thing I'd like to point out here that we can take away is that the template team is very good. Look at that Game Week 8 team on the screen at the moment. Only the 2 keepers, Otamendi, Ozil and Ward, are currently under 10% ownership, with Lacazette potentially also counting as a differential with an ownership of just 10.6%. But the majority of the starting players there are all guys that many of us own or have owned at least, sticking to the widely accepted template with a couple of lower owned players sprinkled in to hopefully give you a bit of an edge over those ranked higher is always a solid strategy to employ. So there we go guys, if you liked the video give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to keep up with what I'm doing here at the FPL Centre, and make sure to hit that notification bell when you subscribe as well so you know when the latest video drops. Let me know in the comments if you found this kind of video interesting. I hope you did. I'll be back with the usual player spotlights and fixture breakdown videos for Game Week 9 next week. Enjoy the international break though guys, and that's all from me today. Thanks for watching.